green arrows. This is good.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, connection is live. We are
All
good to
right.
go.
Excellent. All right, I'm just gonna quickly note that we are live. Good. All right. No more dead air. Shall we get started here?
Let's rock.
All right. Hail cheaters. Welcome to the Always Cheating Podcast. Early start today. I've been doing some more of these recently. It's kind of nice. It's
Mm.
2 o'clock in the afternoon, sunny day here in Brooklyn. You are upstate New York today, right? And you said
In the
you're
beautiful
waiting.
Butternut Valley,
Yeah.
yes, and we've got sunshine and snow. It's a winter wonderland.
Yeah.
Drinking a seasonal cider from Awestruck. It's the winter solstice, so we're pagans in this household.
That sounds perfect. Sorry, my family is departing as we start the pod here.
Absolutely, we're family men. That's a great thing to stuff in at the start of the pod, just to let everybody know that we're relying on your download to feed our families.
Yeah, exactly. It's nice to start off with a. I know they did one of those. We actually went to see a show yesterday. It was a Little Shop of Horrors, and at the end they stopped everything to do a little like a plea for this. It was for Broadway Cares, which is a slightly different thing.
Okay.
That is actual charity as opposed to pretend charity, which is what supporting the podcast
Yes, right.
is. But anyway, let's jump into it, Brandon. Game week 13. Pretty exciting week, I'd say, both from a fantasy perspective and a just regular kind of
Yeah.
game week
Mhm.
perspective.
For sure.
Obviously, the Liverpool Man City match ended about an hour ago, and it was. I guess it was kind of what I expected in the end. I guess I thought it would be even like maybe a little less one-sided. I suppose I did certainly favor Liverpool to win, given both squads' respective forms. But I thought like kind of my immediate okay, I have two takeaways.
Yeah, hit me.
Both kind of Holland related, surprisingly.
Okay.
First is that he was in the best mood. It was incredible. I mean, and I don't mean to be like a body language person. Like he's allowed to be in a good mood. You don't have to like pretend to be mad if you're not mad or whatever. I hate when people like get on that, but it was just so funny. He was joking with everybody on Liverpool,
Yeah.
having a laugh with teammates old and maybe in the future. He and Salah were chuckling about some stuff. And I was like, man, like for a team that's getting destroyed, like Holland is just love it. I don't know if he's disassociating. Like, I don't know what's going on here with
Yeah.
him, but
Right.
congrats to him. Like whatever he had, for breakfast that morning, he was in a great mood.
Yep.
My second thought was, that you can be the literal best striker in the world. And if your midfield is crocked, then you are basically
Yeah.
worthless. Like it's remarkable, right? Because he's not a Harry Kane. Holland is a brilliant player, and so I'm not like negging him really, but
Mhm.
he's not a Harry Kane type, right? Like he's not going to go back and win the ball.
Less
Not
mobile.
often. Yeah,
Mhm.
he's a little less mobile. He can do it. I mean, it's not like he's like it's not like it's impossible for him to get a tackle, but he's not really the type who's going to like Gabriel Jesus style or something,
Yeah.
right? Like
Right.
go back and like win the ball, drive down, receive it back, whatever, right? It's just not really. It's not even how the Man City squad is really set up to help him. But it's just, I just can't believe it's come to this, right? Where there's like, it's like Gundogan seems like the only player who's like trying to do something out there, right? And he wasn't
Yeah.
even in the squad to start the season, and it's like he's the only one who's like I don't even know, like sort of putting some like pressure on the opposition's defense, right? It's kind of shocking me. Phil Foden is like I don't even really know. Like I don't know if this whole season is just like he's cooked or if he's
Mhm.
gonna like eventually come back or what. I mean, I will say, the Saka versus Foden, like who's this generation's best player, like this kind of current, like that is like resolved at the moment, right?
Okay.
Like it's
Yeah.
clearly Saga.
Mhm.
But I don't know, like maybe Foden will come back eventually. Who knows what the deal is there.
It was a great game, just if you're thinking about squad building and squad management, because Liverpool, like, take each of these, like, moves in isolation. Cody Gakpo didn't start regularly under Klopp. Was this a good move, a bad move? Darwin Nunez, Gravenberch, all of these guys. including players that Liverpool have brought through their academy. And you look at the Liverpool squad today, even under a new manager who's never managed in the Premier League, it's like this is a deep, sophisticated squad that has lots of options and play styles. It's fantastic. And then you look at City with 6 titles under their belt under Pep,
Yep.
and the squad is a mess. And it's like an indictment of how they've run that squad over the last 3 years. Some bad injuries to, yeah, like the Ballon d'Or winner among them, and
Sure.
suddenly they're dead in the water, and you've got Bernardo Silva and Gundogan in a double pivot, and is bad. It's really bad. And your Holland point on this weekend of all weekend in the United States, which is all about feasting for Thanksgiving, this man is starved of
Yeah, he
any
really is
any action on
nothing.
the
There's
pitch. Yeah,
nothing. There's nothing happening for him.
yeah,
It's kind of bizarre.
yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, because I suppose the big talking point from a fantasy perspective is we finally got. We've been advocating on this podcast for the last few weeks for getting 3 out of 4, right? Like there are
Hmm.
4 kind of amazing, very expensive players, somewhat hard to own players in your squad, and we kind of ultimately came down a few weeks ago. Just everything, all of your moves, all of your planning should be to get 3 out of these 4 players. And in fact, I kind of hurt myself by hesitating for a week to do that. Right? I didn't get Saka until this week. I wish I had done it, last week. And but you and I finally both brought him in. We
Yeah.
both were rewarded immediately with
Yes.
returns. And now I wonder if it's just the 3, right? And by the way, those 4 are Holland, Salah, Saka, Palmer, right?
Hmm.
And so Palmer had been starting to worry me a little bit, right? Like he was looking at maybe 4 consecutive blanks. He did get an assist late in the first half, which made me feel a little less anxious about another. Well, I mean, obviously at that point he's not blanking that week, unless he, like, I don't know, gets a red card or something. I don't even really know. Misses a pen and gets a red card.
Hmm.
And so yeah, and so but then he gets a really nice goal at the end too,
Hmm.
which sort of sets him up perfectly, right, for game week 14, where they play Southampton. And I
Yeah.
think that you could, although Southampton have been a little friskier, right? You kind of have to keep your it's easy to, like, if you're not paying too much attention, to just kind of rest on your laurels and be like,
Hmm.
this team always concedes a million goals, this team doesn't.
Yeah.
And although with that said, the new version of the, like, oh, they are frisky is Wolves, right? It was like,
Yeah.
oh no, they figured things out. Like, it might be time to bring in Aid Nori. And then I was like, nope, this is still
Triple
the,
up.
yeah, exactly. This
Cunha, Strand Larson, 8 Nuri. Let's go.
exactly. Strand Larson at least would have worked out. I think you would have had was it a brace from him? At least a goal in it.
You know, an 11
Yeah,
pointer,
11
however
pointer.
you get to 11 points, that's up to you.
Yeah, I think that's a goal, assist, and 2 bonus. But yeah, it was that was a very interesting match as well. I think it was was it a hat trick of getting fouled in the box for Evan
Yes.
Nilsson.
Yes.
You rarely see that, and rarely do you see the forward not really make any particular move to take the pen himself. Like,
I think
I know
yeah,
Kluivert's on pens, but
sure, right. Yeah. And Evan Nilsson had missed a pen earlier in the season. So maybe that makes him doubly deferential to Clivert when he's on the
yeah.
pitch.
Yeah, I mean, if this were Arsenal, they would have been shuffling those pens around. Like,
Hey,
Raya would
yeah,
have had a
get in
chance
line.
to,
It's just a
yeah, yeah,
cue. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
You're up,
Um,
Rhea. Let's go.
yeah. So, but obviously, Saka was great. That was a wild match too. That was, I mean,
You couldn't look away without Arsenal scoring a goal or
no,
winning a pen, and Saka was gone Super Saiyan. In
yep,
I could it just of course, like, it's easy to reflect on this without too much pain after Salah got his goal and an assist, but you just like, oh, how I really was closer than I actually was to captaining Saka. Surely I was,
yeah,
because he could have, if he had taken that pen that he gave to Odegaard, just like looking at one of those like seminal halls,
yeah. I mean,
underlined seminal.
there is some value in looking back at the decision, and debating whether it was the right one or not, right? Like, I think, like, just in the sense, like moving forward, is it, do we want to just kind of default to Salah all the time? Like, these guys they're all great, as we're saying, right?
Sure. The
2, 3
problem
of them.
with Game
Yeah.
Week 12, or the hard thing about Game Week 12, is everything went to script.
Hmm.
even like the City performance in Holland blanking, it's sort of like it's just a continuation of what we've learned over the last month.
Right.
And even though there were lots of signs pointing to Saka, we just knew that Salah was in form. Why not captain him as well? And it all went according to script. Salah got his points as predicted, and
Yep.
then Saka and Palmer did the thing, and the armband was split between those three guys. So what did we learn? We learned that just basically you got to have these three guys.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. And the question now is how do you kind of fill out the rest of your roster, right? Because I
Mhm.
think the kind of the corresponding kind of problem this week is that all of the kind of
Mhm.
like less expensive players that you would use to fill up your squad, right? You've got to start 11, so one way or the other. They kind of all blanked. I mean, I look at my team for this week and it was I mean, so I have the, let's see, I had a good week. I finished on, once the auto subs all come in, it looks like I'm going to be on 83 points, which is enough for me to move up a couple 100,000 spots. But it's basically, Solanke injured, or I shouldn't say injured, but ill. But Jimenez blanks again, and Boma blanks again. Rogers blanked, Robinson blanked, Kansa, Gavardiol, Henderson, of course. I mean, Henderson is just an auto blank, right? Like anybody who's, woe be any of us who have to start this clown every
Mhm.
week. But um, so I think it is a little tricky to figure out. Like I sort of hope. My hope now is that now that I've sort of done the work of getting this trio of players in, and I'm sort of resolved not to have Holland for a while. Now I can start to maybe do some of this like mixing
Yeah.
and matching where
Right.
I just sort of maybe target certain cheap players for like a mini run of difficult, or a mini run of easy fixtures, right? When the player I'm
Yeah.
taking out has difficult fixtures and sort of like almost like luxury moves, right? It's sort of, I can sort of focus on these like luxury moves now.
Right. Totally. And I finished on a green arrow as well, but had this similar woes where all of my points came from Palmer, Salah Cap, and Saka, and
Yep.
the only other guy who stood out and did anything was Chris Wood, who is actually the guy I'm most likely to transfer out ahead of Tuesday's deadline. Like I'm looking at Nico Jackson, Chelsea with that Southampton fixture, and it was a horrible day, a horrible Sunday. Like I had Salah Cap, which is fun, but all my
Uh-huh.
other guys were defenders.
Yep.
Robinson, Mikolenko, Pedro Porra, and it was just like waiting for the dominoes to fall and for
I
all of my
know.
points to get taken away. Fair
Yep.
enough. We
I
we would,
started to like talk myself into maybe getting a clean sheet because I had to start Robinson this week
yeah,
as well. And I think like ultimately we were more or less validated in not making a transfer like like an
yeah.
extra defender. Like I would have had to burn 4 to bring in 8 Nori, right? Who would have, picked up 0 points in the
Hmm.
match. If not negative. No, he wasn't in the yellows. So yeah, 0 from 8 Nori. Um
I was
if you had
looking
looked
at
at
Timber for my defensive transfer, which
Timber, right?
would have been like the peak, like kicking yourself when you're like, oh, I'm going to go for the guy who,
Slightly cheaper.
slightly
Yeah.
cheaper, still looks good. And then Gabrielle comes and does Gabrielle things.
Yep. Goal assist, halftime sub, just hilarious.
Yeah.
So
How to make a
yeah,
9 pointer from your defender
I
feel
know.
bad somehow.
He's in that classic zone now where it's like you don't quite know. Like if you own him, you just keep starting him every week. And if you don't own him, you don't necessarily want to bring him in because he's flagged. It's
Yeah.
a real like kind of danger zone spot for a player. I mean, yeah, the other defender you might have looked at would have been someone on Brighton, right? And they conceded to Southampton. Just trying to think of like any other. I suppose Forrest again. Forrest, Aina once again in the bonus. I mean,
Yeah.
you have been talking about this guy for weeks and weeks.
I should
You
get
don't.
him, right?
I know. I should get him too. Like I think he might actually be in the top 5 defenders now at this point. Let me see.
He may
Uh,
be.
yeah, I mean he's up there anyway, and
The
he's third. He's third overall for defenders in fantasy.
it's incredible for a guy who's just not talked about at all. The issue
Yeah,
there with Forest and why I'm kind of looking at Chris Wood out is
yeah,
their upcoming run of fixtures is horrible.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Arsenal, it's sorry, I have to update my fixture ticker here. We're looking at City in midweek,
Not,
followed by
not
Manchester United,
maybe not so
Villa.
bad actually in that case.
I Yeah, okay, yeah, fine, yeah, fair. I mean, what do we do with City now as a fixture? We don't have any
Yeah,
City guys, but okay, then this is a perfect case study for
yeah,
fantasy managers right now. We have Forest assets. They're going up against City away
yep.
at the Etihad. Is this something like, am I benching Aina? Am I playing Chris Wood? What's the
I mean, you're probably benching Anna. I would definitely start Chris Wood. I mean, there's
Mhm.
just no, like, I don't know how you could look at, and also, I mean, I kind of wonder if Kyle Walker won't start at midweek either, right? Because that's a pretty quick turnaround for a kind of older player, right? Getting his minutes. Although he wasn't, no one was good on their defense
Yeah.
today, right? It was a terrible performance. Even with the kind of extreme subs. I mean, I didn't think that that are that like anyone who kind of came in and in replacement was any better, right? I mean,
Right.
Ortega, he was. I don't know. Was he good? He was not really, right? He conceded a pen, and
Yeah.
I don't remember him making any like especially good saves in the match or anything like that.
No, he was bailed out by some poor finishing by Mo in particular when he had that
Yes.
incredible break, and like
Yeah.
that was
Oh, yeah.
a bad fantasy moment for captainers for sure.
Oh, and the marking and corners. I mean, Virgil van Dijk could have had a brace today,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
Oh yeah,
like
Van Dyke was
unmarked
all over his set
two
pieces, right?
two unmarked headers
Yeah.
that he just whiffed on.
Yeah.
Like yeah, it was a 2-0 match that I actually haven't seen the actually I mean I know I've got I'm curious enough I'm going to pull it up on
You
FootMob.
must.
Yeah, let's
Yeah,
what was your guess? Do you think the Liverpool had an XG over 3.5 in this match?
mm, I would take I would that just feels like right to me.
Yeah,
3.5.
that's
I
I'm
would
gonna
say
say
right around
yeah, I'm
there.
gonna say 3.59 is my guess
Okay.
here. 3.35, still quite
Okay.
good.
Yes.
And that's with 2 goals scored in the match. Man City at a 0.82 xG. I'm trying to remember like their golden chance that got them up to a 1 xG. I don't feel like I just really saw anything like significant from
Like
them
a
in this
few
match.
times the ball was ping-ponging around the 18-yard box. Holland got on the end of one, but it was kind of blocked. It was Liverpool were just
Yeah.
very like sound positionally.
Yeah, it was just a yeah, it was just a
Oh,
tough
you know what it
yeah.
was? It was probably Kevin De Bruyne's chance when Van Dijk was just like ponderous on the ball and lost it to De
Right.
Bruyne, and he was clean through, and Kelleher prevented it from going through his legs.
Yeah, yeah, maybe that, and I guess you had the Lewis chance, half chance as well, where he kind of scuffed it a little bit.
Yeah.
Actually, I feel like he actually had like a fairly decent chance to score there. Had
Hmm.
a lot of goal to his left, and
Hmm.
couldn't do anything with it. So yeah, all right. Well, let's talk about some of these mid-price options. I'm gonna name a player, Brandon. You can tell me 1 to 10 what your concern level would be. Okay, I've just
Okay.
got 4 here, but you tell me what your concern level would be.
Okay.
Actually, I'm gonna throw a couple micro injured players in here as well. So it's gonna be 6 total. All
Okay.
right. So 10 being most concerned, 1 being least concerned. Okay.
Okay. About
We're
their
gonna
fitness.
just no, just well, it depends. Could
Okay.
be anything.
Okay.
Form, fitness, whether you'd be comfortable starting them in game week 14 or at least holding
Understood.
them long
Got it.
term. Okay. All right. So we're going to start things off with Mbomo, Brian Mbomo.
Concern level 7.8.
Okay. 7.8 out of 10. So pretty
Yeah,
high. Yeah.
pretty high.
Yeah.
He and Brentford don't perform away from home, and and he's just not, even when Brentford are working, he's really not participating at this point.
Hasn't taken a shot in like a year. It
Mhm.
seems like I think he now has 1 shot in his last 4 matches.
Wow.
So which is just shocking. I mean, he's playing so far out wide as well.
Mhm.
What's weird about it is I actually watching these matches. I am weirdly like interested in getting Johan Vissa. It's like I'm less excited
What's
about
weird about that?
Mbomo. Well, nothing weird about it, but just like it's funny that I'm like dropping like I would not I think like dropping a Bomo something I could consider doing as early as this week.
Yeah.
But just funny to bring in a like the player that he is in theory providing crosses to. I feel like he got a little unlucky not to get the assist because
Yeah, agreed.
it's not clear to me that that cross was intended for, I guess, Vissa in the
Mhm.
box, right? It was just kind of like a cross into the box.
Classic thought crime, Opta right
Yeah,
there.
yeah, exactly.
How
Especially
do you
because they'd
know what's
already
in a man's mind?
I know because they'd already called an assist too, so they
Yeah.
went into it and were like, "No, he didn't mean to do that." And I'm like,
It's
it's
mean-spirited, honestly.
yeah, yeah,
But,
it's too
so
punitive."
The other option I was thinking of just for my own team was Mbomo to Bruno Fernandez, but I am spooked by this Arsenal fixture that Manchester United have midweek, and I'm happy. What I would likely rather do is just bench Mbomo.
Yeah, I think that I would. I actually don't know what I'm going to do yet. I mean, the problem is, I mean, it's if it's Villa without. I mean, you're right about them being like poor away from home, but if it's if Debu is out for Villa,
Yeah,
they really haven't been performing especially well
they haven't.
defensively.
No.
So, I wouldn't like. I would say my concern level is more like a it's a little lower. I mean, I guess there's like real life, like real life versus fantasy, right? Like I think he's
Hmm.
actually been fine. Like I think he's playing pretty well. He's got he's got the ball a ton on the right. Like it's not like
Hmm.
he's I don't watch these matches and think, oh man, like Mbomo is just in horrible, horrible form, right? It's
Right.
just not translated into fantasy returns. And so I guess like from a fantasy perspective, I'm going to call it like a 6.5. I did pull up the upcoming fixtures here. I'm just using the the fantasy sites set of fixtures here. I mean, it's their their next four are not great. Like I think if you had the luxury of a couple of transfers, no other problems, I do think moving him on would be fine this week. Right? It's Villa
Yeah.
away, Newcastle at home the following weekend. Chelsea away the weekend after that. I don't think it's a high priority though, because he's such an important player that with with midweek matches and weekend matches, he's one of the few players on my squad who I am rock solid certain will start, the next two
Yeah.
matches. And there is a lot of value in that.
And to state the obvious, him being on pens, you can easily just fall backwards into a 9-10
Yeah.
pointer.
Yeah, exactly. He could have had returns yesterday. Probably
Yeah.
should have, right? So,
Hmm.
so maybe, yeah. I think a 6-ish is warranted. I don't think that it's
Fair.
still not like danger zone. All right, next player is, and this one's maybe like a little harsh because he did well the week before, but João Pedro, 1 to 10. How do you feel about João Pedro?
Well, having just brought it in this week, I'm just chasing the Southampton fixture, like you were saying
Hmm.
earlier, with thinking about Nico Jackson for midweek, Gameweek 14. He's a low priority, low concern. I'd put him at like a 3.5.
Yeah, yeah,
Because he's he's not necessarily he's close to being the Embomo of Brighton in that he has pens. He's he plays more centrally, which makes him even more central to Brighton's attack, you would say, than Embomo.
yeah,
Uh, and it's just he's a funny fantasy asset because being in and out with injury at the start of the season, I feel like if you like map the data, it's just like up and down, like like
hmm,
uh like an EKG meter. So I
yeah,
don't really have like the best read on the consistency of João Pedro. Obviously, I'm going to run with him since I've just brought
totally.
him in.
I thought he was. I mean, yes, I agree, and I would put him very low on my concern meter. I would put him at like a maybe like a 0, honestly.
Hmm.
But I will say he was not. I did not find him to be especially involved in the Southampton match, and I think
Yeah.
that is disappointing. Like I felt like he was actually weirdly peripheral
Yeah.
in that match. Maybe he was just marked really well or something. But
Well, I think what it
yeah,
was, you've got Matoma who had a decent game on the left, and it was a very wide game for
right,
Brighton. And then when the
right.
ball came central, Welbeck was there,
Hmm.
and Pedro's just kind of like orbiting around what everything else is happening, and it's kind of just like waiting for the ball to squirt out to him,
Yeah,
or he's the one who's diverting the defenders to free space
yeah,
for other guys. So I agree. Yeah, it was not
yeah.
a great game for him to show off.
Disappointing match for Brighton, though, if they want to kind of actually push on
Yeah,
and try to get a
for sure.
European spot this year.
Hmm.
All right, next player is Cunha. Another blank from Cunha. Now, the thing about Cunha is not so much that I think Cunha is suddenly a bad fantasy asset. But
Hmm.
I guess or certainly he's not. But is Strand Larson actually, and I don't mean to be like prisoner of the weekend or whatever, but is Strand Larson actually the one? If you didn't have either one that you should be going for here, it is tricky, right? Because Cunha is it's a little bit of like a João Pedro situation, right? Where it's like, I don't know, it's 'cause you have Cunha like on free kicks and things like that, but Strand Larson is the central forward in their attack.
I don't know. You ask. I think when Cunha was on the menu a couple weeks ago, it was a great debate: Strand Larson or Cunha, and I think the people who favored Cunha were justly rewarded.
Hmm.
And I think what I've seen over the last 3-ish weeks still makes me feel like if you're going to stick with one of these two guys over the next month, because Wolves fixtures coming up are still fantastic. It's Everton, West Ham, Ipswich, Leicester in the next four.
Yep.
I do think Cunha is going to come out with more points than Strand Larson does.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's not a great match for Cunha. Even his underlines were really poor as well, considering how open that match was. Zero point 0.1 xG, 0.07 expected assist, whereas Strand Larson, well, yeah, I guess for him, it's he did score 2 goals actually, 2 goals with 2 bonus. Did he get a yellow card or something? Yeah, I guess that's how he ended up with 11. Although yeah, he was his underlines actually aren't that great either. They're really poor the 2
Yeah.
weeks before that.
Yeah.
So I think I think you're right. I think I would still lean towards Cunha of the two. If I were to yeah, I mean Everton away, West Ham away, Ipswich at home, Leicester away, Man United at home. I mean, I think they're both still strong buys. I put Cunha at like 1.
Right. What
Yep.
about a double up? I mean, Wolves, they're a weird fantasy team right now because the fixtures have lined up so beautifully for them. But
Yeah.
The Bournemouth fixture reminded us Wolves are not a great team in the Premier League
Yeah,
table.
feels a little too extreme for
Yeah,
me.
agreed.
It would be fun to have one. I think having having a Wolves player before this weekend would be fun. They play
Hmm.
a Monday match in game week 15 over the weekend, away to West Ham, and then it's home to Ipswich the following weekend and away to Leicester. So you can basically go right up until Christmas with having a Wolves forward for this really fantastic run. And the problem with doubling up too is you almost immediately are going to want to start dropping them because they have a really bad run after the holidays. Really tough run of fixtures ahead. So okay, let's see. Do I have? Then we have. Oh, this one's going to hit home for me, unfortunately, Brandon.
Uh-huh.
Raul Jimenez,
Yeah.
another
He
blank.
Yeah, he did have a fantastic game against Spurs. I thought he was
Yeah,
doing
playing with a lot
a
of fire.
Gabriel Jesus sort of performance where he was chasing every 50-50 ball,
Yeah,
winning lots of duels. And it's just like the ongoing problem for him and for Fulham is they're not great finishers at the moment.
yeah, yeah. Four blanks and 5 for him. Hasn't scored a goal since game week 8.
Hmm.
So I mean, he has to be. He's certainly at the top of my list of potential
Yeah.
transfers out. I plan to just I have him and Vardy, so they really both need to go as soon as possible. But Vardy, I do plan to start at midweek over Jimenez, bench Jimenez, just because Vardy does play West Ham at home. He was subbed off early. I thought I mean, honestly, I got him off the bench for Solanke, and I feel pretty lucky to get the 5 points there. But he
Hmm.
created a great chance. I don't know if you were
Sure did.
watching that. Yeah,
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 it
great.
was really good heads up from him just to
Yep.
be that close to goal, and your instinct is look for your teammate.
Yep, and subbed off at the 63rd minute as well. So when the match was pretty much out of hand, so
Hmm.
I think that's a good sign for him starting at midweek. And so I mean, I guess there is the new manager concern. So I guess that would be the one,
Hmm.
like whether Van Nistelrooy will immediately bench him, but I don't know why
I
he
can't
would.
imagine he would.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm with you. I like Vardy for game week 14.
All right, and let's see. That gets me through the yeah. So Jimenez, I guess if I were to rank him, he'd be my concern level is pretty high. I'd say. I mean, let's look at the fixtures upcoming for Fulham. They're terrible,
Yeah,
right?
they're
I mean,
bad.
it's yeah. So quite high. I mean, he moves to Cunha so easily. So yeah, so I'll either do it this week or at the like
Yeah.
a midweek or at the weekend. I'll probably
Uh-huh.
move him to Cunha. I would say that my Jimenez worry is like a 9 at the moment. It's
Hmm.
like area. I mean, like, yeah, how high does your concern level have to be to transfer a player out? I'm saying 8 and above. You've got to be really serious about it, right? And so
Interesting. Okay.
so if I put Jimenez at 8 and Mbomo at 6, then it feels like my like
Yeah, you've
decision
got to
making is clear for this week, right?
trust the numbers there for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, exactly. All right, so and then concerns for Solanke and Isak. Solanke actually showed up today and was sent home, too sick to play, said his manager.
That's
And
harsh. He couldn't just like
yeah,
he couldn't just sit in the box with his buddies.
I
He had
guess
to go home.
I didn't want to he didn't want them to. I don't know. You want to translate the
Yeah,
flu or
put
whatever?
somebody puts their hand in Solanke's popcorn bucket, and suddenly everyone's got hepatitis.
Yeah, exactly. We don't have hepatitis outbreak if we can. So they don't play until Thursday, Spurs. So it's probably fine to hold them. The only
Uh-huh.
problem is because they don't play on until Thursday, and this next game week kicks off on Tuesday. So once again, the next game week kicks off literally almost exactly 48 hours from us recording this today.
Hmm.
So it's a little tricky. I mean, hopefully we'll get some news on by Tuesday whether he's fit. I just imagine if he showed up, then he should be okay to play, but we'll see.
Yeah, yeah.
And
I long term, like Solanke, I feel like
I
it's
don't know.
not been a
Yeah.
fun time to own Solanke since
No,
he had that one great performance against Villa.
I have not had anything, and I didn't even have him for that. I've had nothing from Solanke. He's been trash, honestly. I mean, he's again, it's a little bit like Mbomo. He's played fine. I don't,
Mhm.
it's like I'm not watching these matches thinking, oh my God, Solanke is like the weak link in this squad, right? But um, so the other one is Isak, who came off in the 21st minute for Newcastle. It was interesting. There was a question that somebody asked us. Ahead of this pod, but what to do with him, or like,
Yeah.
it never seems to work with him. And I guess my feeling about Isak is that he is appropriately priced, right? It's like you get exactly what you pay for with him,
Yeah.
which is that you get a 10, like a double digit quality forward,
Hmm.
right, with an 8.5 million performance level, right? It's like you're getting like
Yeah.
it's like
Right.
you
That's a
get
good way
you
of framing it.
yeah, you're going to get a lot of injuries, you're going to get
Yeah.
a lot of blanks when you shouldn't. At the end of the season, you're going to get like 16 to 18 goals, like it's going to be a good season overall,
Hmm.
but those could come in bunches, right? It's like it's hard to he is not a very fun player to own in fantasy, in my
Yeah.
opinion. He's just not consistent enough.
Yeah, I do think like if you're gonna try to make a case for him, I do think he's generally fixture proof. Like he's not scared by defenses, and he's coming up against Liverpool in
Yeah.
Gameweek 14 at Anfield. The quote on his injury was, "It was a contact injury, not a muscle pull, which is good news for us. We hope he will recover quickly." But at this moment, guess what he says? I don't know.
Yeah.
Um,
And how is a liar anyway? So it's like impossible to know.
yeah. It's funny, like, what is the opportunity up front? Like, I feel like it's easy to dismiss a lot of forwards. Isak out for who? Like, what is the big forward priority at the moment?
Oh, like if you were to drop him? Well, yeah,
Yeah.
I would only drop if he were truly injured.
Mm,
I think the two that I would look at would be Evan Nilsson or Cunha or Strand Larson if you want to be a little different. And yeah, but I do think that Evan Nilsson is an underrated, still underrated. He's only 2.2% owned in the game, and he's up
mhm.
to 4 goals and 4 assists on the season, which isn't that amazing, but that does include 3 goals and 3 assists in his last 5 matches,
Yeah.
which includes some pretty difficult matches too. It includes goals at Man City, a goal home to, or yeah, a goal away to Villa, and a goal home to Man City. And so he's honestly been, I mean, like his returns in the last 5 weeks, 12 points, 2 points, 8, 7, and 8. So kind
Mhm.
of the opposite of what we've been saying about Isak, right? It's like,
Yeah.
and so they play Spurs in game week 14, which the FPL site has given a 4 on the difficulty ranking. Uh, I guess that means that's like if you're starting like Bournemouth defenders, but if you're starting Bournemouth forwards, this Spurs fixture is like a 1 or a 2. Like it's I mean, like they're going to score multiple goals in this match,
Fraser
100%.
Forrester's performance against Fulham was quite odd in that he made some great clutch saves,
Yeah,
and you couldn't say he was at fault for the Kearney goal. That was just like a great finish.
yeah.
But but the act of him making these saves looked like the most uncomfortable things that any goalkeeper has ever done. Just sort of like, can I just lay here for a minute and you guys just go and kick the ball around while I work myself up, like getting off the ground. Just that's very. He's just a huge man, a mammoth man. But like I guess to your point about Bournemouth's chances of scoring against Spurs, this on Thursday. Yeah, I like it. Like no
Yeah,
starting center backs, backup goalkeeper who's weird. It's
yeah.
cool.
Yeah, I mean that's actually an interesting question between Evan Nilsson and Cunha. If I were to go for one of the two, God, they're honestly they're both great picks. I mean, I could just spend my next two transfers just moving those two players,
Yeah,
honestly, because once you get past the Spurs fixture, it's Ipswich away, West Ham at home, Man United away, Palace at home. Even after that Fulham away, Everton. I mean, it's really you could hold Evan Nilsson until the new year. I
hmm
have dropped Semenyo. I had to make room for Saka. So I do think it's a nice. Semenyo, talk about someone who's completely under the radar now, right? Because
yeah,
he sat out this match with yellow card accumulation. So at least that's off the table now.
yeah.
And he always looks good. Like I do think that like we're sort of. I don't think we're in full on like like total like never performs to the underlying territory
He's
with
not
Semenyo.
Anthony Knockhart territory yet.
No, and he's got 4 goals and an assist on the season too. So
hmm
it's not like he's been a total flop by any means, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. So
just
I do like Bournemouth. I think that could be a really fun match. Actually, I think
yeah.
Bournemouth Spurs could be a really fun one to watch.
Just to round out the alternate forward options, going back to Nicholas Jackson and Chelsea, their fixtures, as mentioned, Southampton in game week 14, followed by Spurs away. Then it's Brentford home, Everton away, Fulham at home, Ipswich away, Palace away. Is the incredible run for Chelsea. And it does feel like going in for Nicholas Jackson, it's going to feel weird.
Yeah.
Especially for managers who played early last season when Jackson looked like fool's gold. But his finishing has certainly improved. He's still walking that yellow card tightrope, but these fixtures are enticing me. I do think I'm going to get caught in this spider web of that Jackson has set for me.
I know. I think so too. I mean, like, would you? Let's see. So Chelsea, yeah, Southampton, Spur. Gosh, they have a great run too.
Yeah.
I mean, the 4 yellows does throw me off a little bit. I mean, I guess the question is basically, do you think that Nicholas Jackson is worth the premium, right, at 8 million over the Cunha, Strand Larson, Evan
hmm
Nilsson options that we just mentioned a moment ago, right? Because it's a pretty big premium. We're talking about, uh, I don't know, like roughly 2.5 million,
Yeah.
more than them.
It genuinely depends on the makeup of your team. I'm in a situation right now where I have for let's see, how much for what million do I have to play with? I have 4.9 million to play with. Say like after game week 14, I want to spend 1 million to move Mbomo to Bruno Fernandez.
Yep.
That still leaves me roughly 4 million to spend like moving Chris Wood to Nicholas Jackson. And then the only thing I really want to resolve further is getting an Arsenal defender. And
Right.
I
That's a big
still would have
priority.
enough, I would
Yeah.
still have enough money for that. So for me, my particular setup, I think it's helped that I'm really light in my defense. Like Pedro Porro is my most expensive guy, and then he turns into basically timber for free. So I do think that it's not a big enough premium on Nico Jackson where it should scare you off. I think it still allows room to do most everything else that you would want to do, assuming you have that 3 midfielder premium
Yeah.
setup.
I think so as well. I think the just to throw one last forward in the mix because it is nice to have a fresh wave of I don't know about you, but it feels like even more than last season, like there
Yeah,
are like waves and waves of interesting options this
yeah,
season,
I
right?
agree. Yeah.
Yeah, last year it felt like it was like you're picking from a pool of 14 players or something like that. It feels
hmm
like the pool is much broader this season, which is definitely I think making for a more interesting kind of strategic season. But I will say Xerxes came on. Well, didn't come on. He played the full 90. Got 2 goals for Man United today. Man United look refreshed. I'm not even going to talk about Rashford. Rashford is not.
Yeah.
We need to see a sustained run of him carrying before we will.
Yeah. Are we seeing it
Yeah,
now? We're not
yeah,
sure. What's interesting about Amarim is that he, in his first 3 games in charge, has started 3 different guys in the number 9. Rashford, his first match in the Premier League, and then midweek in the Europa League, it was Hoyland up front, and he performed, scored a brace.
yep,
And then it was Xerxes So
Yeah.
it's fun to see him trying these options, and he's actually getting like effort out of this
Yeah.
Manchester United team for
It's so
once.
interesting. I know it's. I mean, I guess it's like they're only human, right? It's like how could you not? It just changes your perspective to have like a new voice
Right,
in the room. Like whether it's whether it comes down to the new manager, or it's just a psychological like you just feel kind of lifted having somebody new in there. But
right.
the one player though that we talked about him last week, and I guess I don't really. I just like have no. I guess eventually maybe I turn Rogers into him. I don't know. It's like it's not a huge priority just because I feel like I have other problems to solve. But Ahmad with two
Hmm.
more assists
Yeah,
today, 4.9 million. He's not going to stay at that price for much longer,
yeah.
right? I think that now gives him 5 assists in the last 3 matches, and
He's making
in
it
Premier
look
League.
easy too. That's like
Yeah,
my feeling watching him is it's just like, wow, it just looks very effortless for him.
yeah, and I mean, let's see. Is it actually 5? No, I want to just double check that. I think it's I guess it's 4. Yeah, but still 4 in the last 3 matches,
Hmm.
along with 5 bonus points, right, to go wrong along with those assists. So that, which I think is a good sign too, because right, the bonus points mean that we're talking about chances created here, right? It's not like one of these sort of rebounded shot kind of
Yeah.
assists, right? It's like it's a
Or like a square
yeah.
ball deep in the midfield and somebody just makes an incredible run on their own.
Yeah, exactly. That's the kind of thing that Mbomo didn't get an assist for yesterday. um,
Hmm.
all right, well that's where we are with Man United. They do play Arsenal away, as you noted at the top of the pod, so it does make me a little less eager to bring in like a Bruno Fernandez, right? Like, although,
Hmm.
I mean, all the defenses are all so shaky this season that you could just go ahead and get Bruno. He'll probably do something in that
Yeah.
match.
Right. Yeah, I do
Yeah,
think that United score against Arsenal, and that just like the occasion of a
yeah.
midweek fixture feels like it's bound to happen.
I think there's a pretty good chance of that as well. I think once you look past the Arsenal fixture, it's not a. I mean, they do have a Man City match coming up in a couple of. I guess that's actually this next weekend. But
Hmm.
you've got Forest, Bournemouth, and Wolves in 3 of the next 4. So I think it's a pretty good run from an attacking point of view, especially if you look past the midweek matches.
For sure.
All right, Brennan. So that brings us to our decisions. Once again, we've got a 48 hours from now, game week 14 is going to kick off. Where are you leaning? Do you want to actually share your screen with me real quick, and I can see
Yeah, I'd
how
be
you're
happy
looking?
to. Yeah, and I've kind of like threaded my plans, my ideas throughout this pod. So, just
Mhm.
looking at my team on screen, it's between Chris Wood and Mbomo. Mbomo to Bruno Fernandez or Chris Wood to Nicholas Jackson. And just as we went through all of those sort of fixture runs, including Chelsea and Manchester United, just feels like Nicholas Jackson, who look he could price rise after we're done recording here. Chris Wood, I brought in 3 weeks ago, and the 9 pointer this weekend is all I've gotten from him, but I will be grateful for that. And I will take it. And the Forest fixtures upcoming just don't feel great to me. City away, Manchester United away, back to back, then Villa, Brentford away, Spurs. So it just feels like a good time to cash in on whatever money I've made from him.
Mhm.
And this is the sign of having a good season, right, Josh? Like you get points from a player, and then you're able to
Right. Make a
get immediately get rid of them.
sort of like make a bit of a luxury move, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um. So I mean, defense
Solid
is just.
gold plated moves, Brandon.
But I don't know. Like, what do you think about my defense here? Like, it's pretty. It's not a sturdy defense, and I'm missing
Yeah.
like there
So
could
you've got
be moves.
Kansa.
Hmm.
Yeah, so Kansa, home to Brentford, Mikolenko home to Wolves, Robertson home to Brighton. Um, sorry, your screen is very small. I gotta bring it up here in size. Vought so you wouldn't start, and then
Yeah.
Poro away to Bournemouth. So you probably would. What would you start? You start Poro,
Oh
Robinson,
yeah,
and
here,
Mikolenko, maybe.
let me share my actual bus team here. That's probably simpler. So, right now, I mean, I'm complaining about my defense, and I'm looking at game week 14 starting 4 across the back.
Yeah.
If I were to make the move for Nico Jackson, then I think I would drop Robinson to the bench. And I don't typically do this where I would drop a defender in my fantasy team just because I have the opposite forward
Hmm.
in João Pedro. But I don't really see much in the defenders this week, where I think they
Yeah.
kind of all have an equal shot at points. So I'm just gonna roll the dice and say João Pedro finally gets me some points, and Robinson should sit on the bench.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Even Michaelenko, even getting that -1, I do feel like Everton at
Yeah.
home are a slightly different animal.
So
So,
then you'd look at this
yeah.
team saying Chris Wood is Nico Jackson, and I kind of like it.
Yeah, I like it. I like it too. I guess I probably honestly, well, I don't know. It's tricky. I mean, you have the money. I guess like my feeling, the what would give me pause if I were in your position would just be whether I would want to move Wood to an Evan Nilsson or Acuna, and just save some money to maybe like turn like Rogers into Bruno, right? Like and sort of, and I mean I don't know, like Wood, I don't know, like I guess it's not going to cost you that much to move Wood
Yeah,
to Jackson. So maybe it's like I'm still like struggling with Jackson a little bit. I don't know
yeah,
why, because he's been so good, but it's like I still don't quite fully believe it. But I
right.
mean, you can't get much better than Southampton at home. So I don't really knock the move. I guess that's just that's the one thing that would be the whether I want to spend that much money on
Yeah.
Jackson if I can get a similar quality forward for and save 2.5 million.
Sure enough. Sure enough. But yeah, I think maybe we'll save the captaincy discussion for a bit later. But bus team, I've got the armband on Palmer. I think that will be the runaway captaincy favorite, and Mo gets the vice out of just sheer respect.
Mhm.
So, what about you? So I guess like just to finish that, I'm maybe looking to spend one free transfer, of which I have one. No burning points or anything like that. So where does that put you?
Yeah, I'm in a similar spot, I think, where I have the ability to maybe do the famous luxury transfer as well. I did pop my team into review just out of curiosity, like see what they like what the kind of algorithmic suggestion was,
Hmm.
and that was to hold your transfer. And I don't hate that. I mean, looking at my squad, I mean, assuming that Gabriel is healthy, I kind of like my squad. I do have the captaincy on Palmer at the moment, Saka as vice captain. I think between Palmer, Salah, and Saka, they're all pretty good options. I just think that like Palmer just it's just I mean they're all good options. He has the easiest fixture. I actually wonder if Saka is actually the best captain,
He's
despite.
got the home fixture.
Yep, he's got the home fixture. But I think Palmer takes it.
Hmm.
It's hard for me to we talk about floor and ceiling a lot in this pod, and I
Hmm.
do feel like he's got arguably the strongest floor. So I've got a five across the middle in the formation. I've got Rogers starting right now, home to Brentford.
Hmm.
He was subbed off early in the match, but definitely some concern with him. I mean, we're looking now at three consecutive blanks and declining minutes too. Like he's subbed off. I mean, even just going back to game week 9, subbed off
Yeah.
in the 56th minute there.
And he's
Early
starting
sub.
every
Yeah.
match in the league, in Europe, and
Yeah.
you wonder, like, for a player who's relatively young and new to this like level,
Yeah.
what burnout is going to feel like for him.
Yeah, but the early sub, if he played the full 90, I guess I might be a little bit more worried about him. It's actually a little bit how I feel about Raul Jimenez, who I'm benching over in favor of Vardy. Is I do wonder if at midweek is, especially with Jimenez in his 30s, like is this the match to rest him for Mooney's,
Hmm.
and maybe he comes on as a sub and then starts at the weekend next
Hmm.
weekend.
Sure.
So that would be the move. If I were to make a move, it would probably be it would either be Mbomo to Mbomo to Bruno, but I don't love that, just obviously because it's Arsenal away. It's arguably like to me, it's just like that feels like that's almost too much of a luxury move, right? Like
Yeah.
bringing in Bruno before what might be Man United's hardest fixture of the season, right?
Yeah.
Like I just don't really get the appeal of that. I'd rather just save my transfer if that were the move I wanted to do the most. Gavardiol is, I suppose, a bit of a risk there as well. I mean, the thing is, he didn't play today,
He'll
right?
play.
And I think he'll play too. I just think there was nothing in the performance from Man City today that made me think, oh yeah, they're going to stick with that back line
What
yeah.
did Manola Dargis say about the what's his
Eli
name?
Roth
Eli
and
Roth's performance in
and
Inglorious
Inglorious Bastards.
Bastards?
Just one word: dreadful. Brandon.
Dreadful.
And
Yeah.
yeah, Eli Roth, comma, dreadful. So that was basically everybody. Ake, Akanji, everybody was. It was a. Wait, did Ake play? Akanji played. I don't.
They
Was
both played.
They both played. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so yeah, I do think they've already all starts, and I suppose I have to play him in that case.
Mhm.
Like, and then I actually have Greaves and Kansa on the bench right now, so I like Kansa as a decent backup option. Greaves actually may be arguably the better player, but I am always reluctant to start a player who's been injured for a long time because the worry is, does he get subbed on in like the 85th minute as a
Yeah.
kind of like get the legs back sort of
Mhm.
start?
Yep.
And so even though in theory I actually might like to start Greaves, I might prefer Greaves over Kansa
Mhm.
in my bench order. He's last bench just for kind of safety purposes. So this is a squad that if I just straight up forgot about the deadline, I'd be fine with this team.
Mhm.
And if I were to make that luxury move, like Raul to Cunha, I suppose I probably would bench Mbomo as well. But
Yeah.
again, I still don't love it because I just think returns are. I, I just think returns are still imminent for Mbomo. Like to me, I don't. I think it's fine to bench him, but I don't think it's a. I don't think it's like a open and shut that you should bench Mbomo this week.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yes, it's the great talisman theory. And there he
Yeah,
is. There he
exactly.
is.
Yeah, like you said, maybe he gets a pen, right? Or something like that.
I'm
Given
getting,
yeah.
Josh, this sense of optimism coming from the cheaters on
Mm.
this episode. We've
Yeah,
both
you're
got
right.
green arrows. We've got
Yeah.
we, as you, we've settled this whole premium player
Yeah.
issue for our teams. We're happy with
Yeah.
that solution.
We're both in a zone where we could have a couple of bad game weeks and still be in the top million. And
Yeah.
that's always that's always a good
Right,
feeling.
right, right, right.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like last year you and I were just like we were getting halfway through the season and we were both like in the 1 or 2 million range. And I was like, well, this might
Just
just never
mm,
happen this year.
yeah, it was a real
Yeah.
scrap to get into the
Yeah.
top 500K last season.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I suppose it is nice. And I also, again, I just think that the strategic challenges, like the number of options that are available to us this season are part of the appeal for me. I feel like there are lots of ways to go with
Mhm,
transfers and decisions. You can hold some weeks, you can move. There are forward options, there are defender options,
mhm.
which I think does make it a lot more fun. So let's move on, Brandon. Let's do just a quick look ahead to. We wanted this to be a pretty fast podcast with a quick turnaround, and I do want to look just quickly at the fixtures for Game Week 14. But before we do, Brandon, do you want to do a quick shout out for our
Sure.
Patreon supporters?
Absolutely. Patreon.com/always cheating. That's where you can go to get more always cheating content. It's a great way to say thanks to me and Josh for this podcast week in, week out. And you get a second podcast every week ad free. That's closer to the game week deadlines. We also have a booming Discord with lots of conversation with fellow managers who are always doing rate my teams. And if you don't want to talk about fantasy, just go there to talk about cheese. That's what most people do anyway.
Yeah,
Uh,
we have
but
we have a new producer that we forgot to shout out last week.
right, Francis Mann, who is also the founder of the Always Cheating community team, which is one of many different little mini leagues that you can get involved in. And I think that's my favorite part about the Patreon and the Discord is I am in so many fun leagues season to season because of what the Always Cheating Patreon community puts together. So there's lots to get your hands dirty with there,
Yeah,
and we're entering that holiday season. And if you're feeling festive and want to throw a few bucks in the tip jar for me and Josh,
yeah.
we'd love to see you at the Patreon, patreon.com/always cheat.
Yeah, think about it like the NPR pledge drive just
Yeah.
started. It's December 1st, so it's a great month to become a patron because not only do you have the festive fixtures ahead, but you get the full month ahead of you as a Patreon supporter. So it's a great time to join. And I also did want to quickly shout out a couple of new members because it is the beginning of the month. Shout out to Aditya. Adyatama, excuse me, Sumantri, Adyatama, Brandon, Adyatama, Sumantri,
Great. Welcome.
uh, Nick Chequin, James Entwistle, and Daniel S. So a couple of new members, Brandon, that
Nice.
I wanted to shout out on the pod today.
We welcome you.
Yes, very much so. And yeah, once again, that's patreon.com/always cheating. If you feel like you're in the pledging spirit, show your support for the cheater. We
Yeah.
need to have a annual option. Like I feel like there needs to be like a Substack style thing where you can do a. By the way, if anyone has suggestions, I am a little stuck on the Substack, Brandon. I started one for always cheating.
Mm-hmm.
I am finding that we kind of cover my big thoughts when we
Yeah.
do this pod,
Yeah.
and then the next day I feel like I'm kind of recycling my takes. And so
Yeah.
I think what I want to maybe try to do is something that's closer to the deadline. But I feel like I need a hook or an angle or something
Yep.
like that.
Yep.
And if listen, if you're out there listening and you want to use it for yourself, then don't tell me. But if you're not, keep it for yourself. But if you're like, I'm never going to do this, I think this would be a fun idea. Hit us up on the Discord, or send us an email, or hit us up on Blue Sky or wherever, and just say, hey, wouldn't this be a fun thing to do for Substack? Because I'm kind of hunting for new ideas. I enjoy the act of writing these, but I just need something that's a more kind of sustainable.
No
feature,
reheated takes, Josh.
Yeah, exactly. I last couple of times I was like, man, I spent 10 hours writing when I said in 40 minutes on the pod. It's not 10 hours, but a couple hours. All right, so Gameweek 14, Brandon. I'm gonna pop it up here just that you and I can both look at it as we're talking here. It kicks off on Tuesday. We have it's a real. I just muted my mic instead of sharing.
I can hear you now.
Yep. It's a real like hors d'oeuvres kind of starter here, Brandon. We've got Ipswich, Palace, Leicester, West Ham to kick things off on Tuesday. And so I guess let's just go day by day here. So again, I think that Vardy is a decent start. Bonanote again, I thought had a nice goal. Every time I watch him, I'm impressed. He is, and he's on loan from Brighton. It's just crazy how Brighton's ability to find talented players so talented they can't even fit them into their squad. It's ridiculous. It feels like he could have done a job for them this year.
I think so,
I think we will. We'll see him next season there for sure.
Yeah, it's a fun day, Tuesday, for budget strikers. So you will start Vardy, I will start Liam Delap, and they both are home against not quality opposition in Palace and West Ham. No disrespect, but there was a bit of disrespect sort of baked in there. But I hope
Palace's play has been disrespectful to us, the fans.
That's true.
It
turnabout is fair play, Palace.
Exactly.
So I think it's a fun day for the attack. I mean, it's just for defense. I'm not sure. Like, what do you rate West Ham's chances here? I mean, they have proven, once a month that they are actually a real football team, West Ham. But most of the time they are just they're bad.
They are like the least interesting and least fun team to me in the Premier League this season. I mean, it's hard to even have a thought about them, right? Because I know disrespect meant to their supporters or whatever, but it's just a bummer, right? It's like the whole team just bums me, and I don't get it. I mean, they were in Europe last season, right? We saw them play in the Europa League. Like it was, I forgot about that. And in this squad, it's like they didn't change any. They brought in a 36-year-old striker or whatever who was like immediately injured, and
Wan-Bissaka's changed the game. He's got 2 goals and 2 now.
Wan-Bissaka is good. I mean, adding scoring to his game is actually incredible. I guess it's like he's like, this is like his I actually could do this tour. I mean, there was no evidence that he never did any of this at Palace or Man United. Right. And Emerson too. I mean, I don't know. Like there are some interesting players there, but just not enough to get excited about it all. So I think these could both be fun matches, just because honestly they're again they're 4 bad teams. Right?
Yeah, it could be like 2-2 and 2-2 between these 2 matches, and that sounds like a fun way to spend a Tuesday afternoon.
Double relegation battle.
2 for 2, 2 2-2s for 2 on Tuesday.
And then Wednesday we've got let's see, Everton Wolves, Man City Forest, Newcastle Liverpool. Newcastle Liverpool should be fun. God, Liverpool now with an 11-point lead. It's amazing.
Liverpool might they should wipe the floor with Newcastle, who have looked horrible the last couple of weeks.
Are you giving any thought to Salah captaincy for 14?
No, why not though? Given what I just said,
he just feels third best. I mean, he feels third best of the 3 great options that you and I
Mhm.
both in our own squads had to pick from. I like Palmer the most, hosting, away to Southampton. Saka just because he's so good at home,
Yeah.
and then Salah. So I mean, they're all
Yeah.
fantastic. And honestly, like it's not like we're betraying Salah here, right? Because he was outscored by both those two players
Yeah.
this very week.
We don't wanna be we don't wanna get the, like, balls of cotton wool award in the mini league mate dossier. We have to change up our captaincy every once in a while just to
Yes.
avoid that
Yeah.
moniker.
Yeah. Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
I wanna talk a little bit more about this City Forest match because I
Yeah.
think it's a very interesting fantasy match. Like, tell me your score prediction for this
Mm.
one.
Like 2-1 City,
Yeah,
maybe.
that's
I mean,
exactly where I'm at as well.
yeah. Yeah.
It feels like one that it has a lot of stakes for fantasy teams because people are either single double up on Nottingham Forest defense. I'm trying to figure out is it worth keeping Chris Wood, and
Yep.
City have done nothing, absolutely nothing to warrant any trust in real life or in fantasy. And I feel like it's kind of like both of these teams are kind of like meeting right in the middle for me. And it's like a 2-1 City or even a 1-1 draw, just given how
Yeah.
absolutely awful City's form
Well,
is.
the argument for City too, and we were talking about this a little in the Patreon pod a couple days ago, is just that uh, I was reading, I think it was in the Athletic or something. They're talking about the kind of pressing style of
Hmm.
Man City and how they don't give up many chances, but the ones that they do are high quality, right? And they've always
Hmm.
been kind of able to get away with it through some strong keeping by Ederson, and obviously even a really good chance tends to be it's still not, even a great chance might be a 33% chance of scoring, right? And so the thing about Chris Wood is that he is incredible at converting high percentage chances, right? This is sort of his
Hmm.
specialty, right? It's like you give him like just like you give him a ball in a good spot basically, and he's going to score. And so
Yeah.
I'm not saying that you shouldn't make I think your planned move of him out for for some forward,
Hmm.
whoever it may be, whether it's Jack. Well, I just mean like I was
Yeah, I
advocating for
hear
maybe
you.
a non-Jackson option, but
Sure.
I think that still makes sense. But I think if you had other problems in your squad, like I don't know, like let's say somebody gets injured, like somebody pulls up in training in the next
Yeah.
48 hours, I don't think starting Chris Wood is
Yeah.
a disaster.
I agree with this take totally. Okay,
Yeah,
so I think that's a good perspective on that fixture.
yeah.
What else do we have to
Arsenal,
talk about
yeah,
here?
Arsenal, Man United, Villa, Brentford. We actually talked a bit about Villa Brentford already, but I think the Arsenal Man United match is interesting because Arsenal, I mean, they just scored 5 goals in one half, actually, which like the second time that's happened, right? Like, because
Yeah.
didn't Chelsea score 5 in the
Oh.
when Palmer had his like Palmer uh, quad trick,
Yeah,
whatever it's
right.
called.
Well, I think I always get that match confused with the Wolves match,
It was
which is
it
when
was
Palmer got the hat trick of assists.
Yeah, I think it was Brighton, wasn't it, where they scored all
Yeah,
the
you're
goals
right.
in the half?
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
But so I think so Arsenal clearly like the attack is clicking again. I think they feel like, especially with Odegaard back, that they are back to the squad that we kind of thought we'd see all season, right? And
Hmm.
and honestly, they are. They look great. And despite conceding a couple, so and then Man United look like they've got. I mean, to me, I guess like the point is this is probably the premier match at midweek, right? It's the
Hmm.
most interesting match from a kind of it's the make fantasy, or is it the make fantasy? I guess it's just the pure watch of
Yeah.
removing fantasy for a second. It's just
The
like if you had to
narratives
watch
are
one match, it'd be this one.
right. The narratives are so compelling. You can probably put fantasy aside,
Right.
uh, as
But
hard as that can be.
yeah, but also there will be a lot of fantasy. Like it's got
Yeah.
something for everybody.
Yeah.
And so that'll be a fun one. And then yeah, Villa Brentford, I think will be I think an interesting match as well, just because Villa are in a really rough run of form,
Hmm.
and Brentford are just so well coached that I think this one could be. I don't know. I like 2-2. I think this could end up being like a 2-2 match. This Villa Brentford match.
Yeah, I'm planning to start Konsa just with the hope that Emery, being a defensively savvy manager, sets
Yeah.
that as his priority of, the future success of Villa has got to start from the back
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
Now, with Emi Martinez
If
possibly
he's
being
out.
out with the hand injury, it's easier. Like Martin
Yeah.
Olsen, we've all had great fantasy moments where Martin Olsen was the victim
Yeah. I mean, they it could work the other way where that makes them set up even more
Could
defensively,
be. Yeah,
right?
right. Mhm,
Because they don't, they doesn't have faith he's going to get bailed out.
mhm.
And then Fulham Brighton on Thursday and Bournemouth Spurs on Thursday. So again, I think the game week 14 ends with what I think will be a really fun match
Yeah.
in Bournemouth Spurs. I think that this match to me is another one where I think it could be super high scoring. Like I think it could
Oh,
be
yeah.
like 3-3 or three
Yeah.
four or something like that. I think you could see a ton of goals in this one.
It's funny, like, Tuesday is 2 matchups that could be high scoring because we're not high on any of those teams, and then Thursday, it's, like, 4 really good teams
Yep,
going
yep,
at it, and what could
yep.
also be high scoring. Totally agree.
Yeah. So a fun midweek. I mean, it's
Yeah,
almost a shame these are. I don't know. I'm gonna have to figure out some plans for these, Brandon. It's the holidays
yeah,
though. Things tend to slow down a little bit over the holidays. I am in theory in my actual office in my hashtag real life job for
yeah,
Tuesday and Thursday. So we'll see, Brandon. Let's see if I
yeah,
you
I feel
know
a cavity coming on here.
yeah, exactly. Is a cavity? Is there another like do I need a screening of some kind? Like who knows? And I got my first CAT scan last week.
Ooh,
That was
cool.
that was scary. Yeah, you ever had one of those
I've never
before?
had a CAT scan, but I understand,
No.
like, if you're claustrophobic at all, it's terrifying.
Yeah, and it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. For some reason I
Okay.
thought you were like in like an actual like tomb of sorts. It's more like a thing that kind of just goes over you and you lay down,
Okay.
um yeah, no, it was honestly it was just like I am approaching proper
Yeah,
I hate to even say breathe it into existence, Brandon, but
yeah,
the word middle aged is starting to creep
sure.
into my
Yeah.
vocabulary a little bit. And
Why
I
are people so interested in our colons all of a sudden?
Yeah, exactly. I haven't had it. Thankfully, I'm still under the. If you had one, have you had one of those yet?
Well,
Isn't
just because I haven't gone to a doctor in the last year is really the only
okay.
reason I've escaped that.
Yeah, yeah. Mine was my cholesterol is high,
Mm, mhm.
like everybody in the North Americas, and
Yeah,
so they're like, well, just do a screening, and we'll see if it's like clinging to your. It's all disgusting stuff, like like you have cholesterol in your heart or whatever. And thankfully, I do not, and so
good.
it's just I'm just eating too many burgers. So let's cut down. Let's end on that note, Brandon.
Yep.
Cut down on your burgers.
Mhm.
Captain Cole Palmer. Best of luck to everybody. We want to turn this thing around real fast that everybody can listen ahead of Tuesday. So best of luck to everybody in game week 14. I think it'll be a lot of fun. We will do a Patreon pod on Thursday evening, so that'll
Mhm.
be a chance for us to look ahead to the fixtures after that. And yeah, I guess we'll go from there.
Fantastic. And as always, big thanks to our producer patrons. If you want to get involved, as noted in Patreon, go to patreon.com/always cheating. We'd love to see you there. Our producers, our heroes, Mike DePietro, Trevor Ingerson, Dave Wegner, Lodahl, our buddy Chris Howell, Andy Penn, Nick Wright, Lazarus Yanos, Jesse Halstead, Brian Chin, Bobas Kuhn, Blair Jacobson, Todd Byerly, Andy Portlock, Dan Parsons, Terrence O'Donnell, Kerry Swanson, Jefferson Turner, Ezzy Does It, Francis Moore, Sam Shower, Craig Jackson, Caleb Robbie, Brian Clark, Thomas Tislov, Fred Jacobson, Gareth H., Shalon of Kadaki, Rishi Nigam, Noah and Louise, Travis Grant, Linus Vennerstrom, Matthew Skinner, Ben Coombs, Eric Kite, Rune Sandberg, the three Jims, James Murray Wood, James C., and James Holland, Scully, Craig at Total Mass Tutoring, and our newest Patreon producer, Francis Mann. Rate, review, subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Hail cheaters. No, you don't want that. That means nothing to us anymore. All you want to do is go over to bluesky.com where we're thriving. There's a great
Mhm.
fantasy chat going over there. We are on Blue Sky, always cheating FPL.
Yep. I've decided I'm just long hauling it on Blue
Yeah,
Sky now, Brand. I'm just like
cool.
people come and go. I mean, the thing is we have literally 1/25 as many followers as we do on the old Twitter account. And we get 10 times as much engagement from literally anything on
Yeah,
there.
right.
And they don't throttle links. So hey,
Yeah.
let's
It's
stick with it.
engagement concentrate, and we love
Hmm.
that. If you
Yeah.
missed any of that information and you want to know more, just go to our website, alwayscheating.com. Hey, just a quick plug for our digital shop. We got t-shirts and pint glasses and whatnot. If you've got somebody on, if you're making, I can't imagine somebody's listening to this podcast thinking, I've got somebody on my list who would enjoy something from the Always
You never
Cheating
know.
shop. But you never know. But if you are making a list for somebody to give you gifts, check that out.
Yeah, I like it. And that's it. That's it for everybody. Oh yeah, and I guess like the pledge drive thing too. So if you're if you get a Christmas bonus or something like that and you want to support the cheaters, that would be great. You can go to patreon.com/cheating. It's very affordable. I mean, really is, especially at the lowest levels. It's cost less than a cup of coffee. So we will talk to you soon, everybody. Good luck this weekend, or good luck at midweek, I should say. And we'll be back on Thursday. Bye.
See ya. Cool. We are out.
Nice.
That was a good pub.
Yeah, I thought so too. I think you're right. We were in a good mood. It's easy when